what I feel is that the analog way of thinking, of pre-visualization, imagining what things are to be, that's what's going to disappear from the new generation of cinematographers because they don't have to use that part of the brain. Now you just turn the camera on,
Look
and
at the
look at
monitor.
it, yeah, and say, oh, that's too dark, too light, or we need some light there. So you're like painting by numbers.
Out of Sight. Fantastic looking picture. Totally different from the other stuff. Like just completely different. Really strong overexposed feeling of, at certain points. Was that a conscious decision? Was it something that happened, or was it
No, everything is conscious.
Right.
Even if it's an accident, it's a conscious decision to let that go.
Let it in.
For instance, the Out of Sight is really 4 films.
Yes.
Each location is its own look. The film moves from Miami, Detroit, Los Angeles, and Angola State Prison. So we moved around a lot, and each of these were given specific looks. And those looks were all pre-planned. Angola had a very strong tint to it. But it was also night and day. We used the sodium vapor look of that time, a very strong we used a strong yellow, and then Detroit, was a specific kind of cold blue look that was consistent through that whole sequence.
Yep.
And then Miami was a more saturated turquoises and yellows and, what you would expect in South Beach type thing.
The trunk ride sequence. How did shooting that sequence come about with the chemistry that it had?
They were very professional, Jennifer and George, and they did what they were supposed to do. And, when I first read that scene in the script, I said, my God, how am I going to do this? And I just racked my brains about how to come up with little pieces of source lights inside that trunk, bleed light from the tail lights, coming on and off. And just, flashlights bouncing off surfaces in the trunk to light people. And, so that was a difficult scene, but I thought it was, brilliant.
Oh, it's brilliant.
And then, but it was 5 pages in there. And then, that film, when you speak about accidents, in the very beginning, when we were shooting in Miami, in my mind, George Clooney was Cary Grant. When I looked through that camera, I saw Cary Grant.
Right.
I tried to light him that way and treat him that way. I never shared that with anybody, but that was my character motivation.
Thanks for sharing.
Yes. And I remember when we were outside the bank where he held off the robbery, was held in. That zoom and flares and everything was taking advantage of the accidental light at that time we were shooting. That really wasn't planned. I remember Steven said, can we do anything special to this? And in my inimitable way, because I operate on all my movies, I just grabbed hold of the 12:1 zoom, 11:1 Panavision zoom, and just grabbed it and just crashed it in on George. Went through the flare and crashed it in on George, and she was, oh yeah, I like that. It just feels like there's a certain cosmic force coming in on him.
And it is a part of the visual language of the movie, actually, the rest of the movie.
It launches the film.
Yeah.
And Steven was totally open to that and embraced it, and it gave the camera a certain freedom after that.
So flash forward a few more years. I Am Sam?
Yeah, I Am Sam. I Am Sam, to me, was a very special movie. And, I had the privilege of also working with Sean Penn and Michelle Pfeiffer. That was unbelievable.
Right.
So, and this was Jessie Nelson's, I believe it was her first film directing. And that film was a very interesting creative process because we actually used the video assist as a sketching tool. In other words, we would shoot things and then she would watch that and say, oh yeah, I'd like to do more of this, more of that, and then again, it was that feedback, creative process feedback thing. And Sean Penn was very much into elevating no two takes were the same. He'd elevate the whole scene every time. And I think everybody was in awe of that, including myself. And I think that was the first film also, I have so many firsts, right? That was the first film that was shot with all handheld zooms. We used the short zooms that were not really considered feature film quality lenses because they were from still cameras, Minolta lenses.
You used Minolta still zooms?
Yeah.
On which body? On like a movie?
On a Panaflex. And so I came to those because, again, what we talked about before, the subjective experience of my contribution to the film. So I was looking for any way to make the camera more subjective, to be inside a mentally challenged person's head.
The lighting in I Am Sam is very, very flattering.
Well, I had a little bit of thing there. You can't just throw Michelle Pfeiffer out there and not support her. It's the same thing with Iron Lady, right? You can't put Meryl Streep out there and not support an actress of that caliber. So Michelle, in my camera tests and stuff, I treated her a certain way, which was I basically built a shell around Michelle.
A shell of light.
A shell of light. And I made sure that the lights were there to reflect that softness on her face. So if you had a picture of her walking down a hallway, there'd be 5 electricians and grips walking with her so that she maintained that ethereal quality.
That's going to some pretty, not extreme, but that's going to some pretty stiff lengths to make sure that you're doing what you think is necessary.
Yeah, and it is necessary whether people like it or not. That's who people are coming to see. Mm-hmm. And the actors also respect that. Mm-hmm. They know when they're being taken care of by a cinematographer, and they know cinematographers who don't know what they're doing. Because most of these people have worked with cinematographers who do know what they're doing. So when a cinematographer comes along who doesn't, it stands out to them. What? Oh, don't I need a light there? Don't I need a light there? You hear the stories about actresses looking in mirrors and see how they look and saying, I don't like the way I'm being lit. There's all those kind of stories. And that's why old actresses from olden times, not old actresses, specified cinematographers in their contract, like Mary Pickford or Charles Rocher,
right.
Blah, 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 because they knew those cinematographers took care of them.
Is there anything else about the movie that sort of stands out to you as being sort of was a challenge to work through, but you were proud with the results?
Well, many of the secondary characters in that were mentally challenged people. And so, working with them and making it safe for them, that was a real challenge, and also making it safe for Sean. Sean is a very high-intensity actor, totally involved in his work and totally in character. He liked to be called Sam. He didn't want to be called Sean. Whenever he was around the movie set, he was Sam. He tried to stay in character all the time. You could tell, in my mind, I was applauding him.
Let's talk about 13.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this movie is kind of ahead of its time. But it has, and I'm saying this in no way pejoratively, almost a video camera aesthetic to it, because you're right there. Mm-hmm. And it's so unabashed with all the performances. Tell us about making the movie. Just tell us about making the movie.
Yeah, that movie was probably a turning point in my life, artistically. Because in that movie, I felt like no boundaries. Didn't want there to be any limits, just wanted it to be experiential. The immediacy was the priority in that project.
Crew, grip and lighting, crew, large, small?
Oh, very small. The biggest light we had was a 4K, which since I pushed the film, made it an 8K.
You pushed everything one stop?
Yeah, to make it more gritty.
There's actually some sequences with a lot of characters in this. Mm-hmm. They go to school. They walk around school. The feeling of it is almost like you happen to follow them to school.
Yeah. Well, what we did was, it's like Catherine and I planned out meticulously the angles we wanted to shoot in. We sat in that house. We sat in the schools. We made shot books of, angles where possible things could play.
So even though it had a feeling of being free and it was just whatever that take was, it wasn't really like that. It was really planned out.
It was planned out. They were given freedom within that plan. Like they could do what they wanted within that channel.
Holly Hunter, along with you, is probably one of the most experienced people on the set. I mean, we talked about the Michelle Pfeiffer lighting setup. Obviously, you weren't doing that here. Was she just right in there with the whole picture? I mean,
yeah. I mean, I still try to keep Holly looking decent. You know what I mean? But within the world that she was, you know, this was a lower
class
income household. You know, salon in the house type thing, and we wanted that grittiness. You know what I mean? But everybody was given the best light they could. Now, you know, a lot of films, of course, after this film, took that look, like Hurt Locker and other films. You know, I always joke that Hurt Locker's like 13 in Baghdad. Right? I mean, if you look at it,
I never thought about that. Actually,
if you look at it, it's the same thing, right? They do the same. It's the same thing, you know. But I'm just trying to say that film provided a template for films that followed. You know, it became a reference film. Now, I don't know if they looked at that film or not, but I can't imagine they didn't.
When I think about the movie in hindsight, before watching it again, I thought, oh, it's psychedelic. It's got this energy to it. Most of that is the motion of the camera.
Yeah, it's not. Again,
it's not the lighting.
No, it's expressionism.
Right.
You know, this is now it's a realistic expressionism. When they go in front of those sprinklers.
Yep.
That was pre-planned, but that's what it was. You know, again, we had hardly any resources. You know, we had a balloon light. We're in a park in Culver City somewhere, I think. I don't know. And we're on a berm. Asked to find a berm. I put some lights on the other side of the berm to backlight the water. And I said, well, we got to get some sprinklers. And that was a big deal, you know, getting sprinklers and water out there. But that's all it was. And then we had a big backlight, you know, and that's how we lit it.
And the sequence where the two girls sort of get trashed, well, that's half the movie, but where Nikki Reed and Evan Rachel Wood get pretty loaded and she starts going through store after store after store.
Oh, on Hollywood Boulevard.
On Hollywood Boulevard.
Yeah, well, did
you have those locations or did you just walk in there?
They had talked to those people, but we did not have Hollywood Boulevard as a location. We just went out on the street with that camera and just shot them. 500
speed stock?
Yeah. Well, it was 800 now, or 640. Yeah, we just went out and shot them. You know, I forget. I think I had a handheld light, though, sometimes. Yeah, battery-operated light, soft source. And that's all we did. We just went out on the street and shot them acting.
It's amazing. So it's a pivotal movie for you.
It is a pivotal movie for me, and it's probably a pivotal movie for independent film culture.
Yeah.
You know, not just me, you know. I mean, it's a film I'm very proud of in terms of a creative experience. I have to say it's a high point to pull something like that off.
Let's go ahead to Twilight. So Twilight is like visually, there are times where everything is, you know, still and gorgeous, and then there are times like the running through the forest with Robert Pattinson. All the high-speed stuff is wacky and weird and has a feel to it that's like raw. And how did you go about getting those images?
For me, motion blur and high speed was always a critical part of, and speed ramping.
Yeah.
Was a critical part
like the baseball game as well, too.
Yeah, a critical part of the vampire experience. And that's something I insisted on ever since I came on the project in terms of an emotional feel of things, you know, of being with the characters, ramping with them. You know, and also in terms of their magical abilities. And I'm not saying that's even new. Nothing's new in film. It's just how you use it. And we didn't try and use it like some commercial. You know, we tried to make it a part of the story. I guess the biggest coup in Twilight, again, which set probably a standard in looks, was the coloring. You know, again, this is a DI process. It was built, the inspiration for it for me was noticing that Kristen Stewart was whiter than any vampire.
Okay.
Naturally.
Right, naturally.
Her paleness,
yeah,
you know, I guess her Irish type skin.
Yeah.
And so what I did was again, this is the creative process, right? It's taking advantage of the journey, looking at her and going, wow, yeah, she really is a vampire wannabe. And the subtext of her, she really is a vampire, even though she hasn't become one yet. And the people in the Pacific Northwest, there's no sun up there, so everybody should be like her. And so that allows the vampires to exist among them without raising suspicion. As soon as I incorporated that in my world, I said, okay, now where are we? Oh yes, we're in the Northwest. What is the Northwest? The Northwest is cold light, lush greens, dark blacks, in the forest. So I built that in the GI. I desaturated the whole thing. I crushed the blacks down to a really good black level, still independent of the skin tones. Then I pushed the whites extreme so that they would glow, and then I brought the greens back. So you don't get the desaturated green, but the greens became alive. They became an element, Then I just cooled the whole thing off for the, cool climate, and that became the Twilight look. And then I incorporated that right away into the dailies. So that
so you got
every piece of film the producers saw had that look on it, because they may have, what so often happens with cinematographers or directors, you want to look and they film it straight, and then you put that look on the film
and the producers go,
yeah, what's that?
Yeah,
we like the way it looked that way, which is nothing. So since we're not dealing with reality, especially in a film like this, the coup for me was getting that look right off the bat. So every day they looked at that film, they saw it that way, and then they became part of that world too. So the producers, supported that instead of fighting it.
It's interesting you say this. So you're saying it really often happens that a photographer will have in the back of his mind, I'm going to pull this magic trick through the DI, and I'm exposing it this way and that way, and I'm getting it, but I know I'm going to do that with it. Then they go to do that with it, and because the studio and the producers, everybody have been staring at whatever their idea of the movie is, they can't handle the style.
Yeah,
they can't envision the style.
Because they're not the creative entities. They're the marketing entities and the producers. So they all have their own ideas, which have nothing to do necessarily with the movie.
So outside of the DI and the look and that which was so specific for Twilight, with the camera, with the compositions, with what you were doing, what did you and Catherine want to do? That was, it's not 13. This is a different movie.
Right. So we wanted to have that subjective feeling again. Catherine is very much her propensity, I should say, is very much floating in there, being with the actors. Because there's a certain living energy that young people have. And if you just, formalize it and lock cameras off and be on the dolly all the time, it puts a lot of weight on them for acting, a lot of responsibility to make their characters live, where the camera is totally capable of helping them by being more with them and bringing the audience into their world. And that's where Catherine comes from with that. And so we use the camera. A lot of Twilight is handheld. Even if it's steady, it's still handheld. So you feel like the film is alive. And because in the end, that first Twilight is a love story. It's not trying to get the 15 to 25-year-old male audience in there with some kind of forced action sequences.
No.
And if a boy allowed himself to go there and see that movie, he would get into it too. It's just that they have this stigma that it's a girl's thing or whatever. I'm sure a lot of the men came with the women, but they just can't bring themselves to say, hey, I kind of enjoyed that. It's just men have a hard time being truthful. It's just the nature of men.
Elliot Davis. Thank you for joining us.